It is Wednesday, my dudes, and time for an old man yapping. It is just barely before midnight that I am recording this because I really wanted this week's video to be about, hey guys, finally worked out how to use the animation tree in Godot 4.4 to do 2D animation. But it is not. It is not about that. So I'm not drinking a rum and coke today. I'm drinking a bourbon and coke. Specifically, I'm drinking the old school brown sugar bourbon. It is not my first. Oh God. So there's a thing that I've worked out about people writing tutorials, and the thing is that a lot of people, this isn't the first time I've noticed this, but I've never talked about it on video before. A lot of people will have a problem, and they will go and try to solve that problem. And when they go to try and solve that problem, what they will notice is that they use a particular tool to solve that problem. And then they'll make a video and they'll say, here's how to use this tool that they just learned how to use to solve a very specific problem. So they know how to use this tool to solve this problem, but they don't necessarily know that it's the right tool for the problem. Like I'm looking at the official documentation for Godot 4, and all of the examples on how to use the animation tree are 3D animation examples. I don't think the animation tree was ever really intended for handling 2D animation so much as it was intended to handle 3D animation, and you can use it for 2D animation. There's no reason you can't use it for 2D animation. So people are using it for 2D animation, and then they're going, here's how you use the animation tree for this. But we have no official guidance on it. We have nothing from the team themselves to say, here's how you use it for that. So everybody's just kind of going off in their own maverick direction, which means you watch a tutorial and these people are just, they're pulling shit out of their arse. And they don't really know what they're doing, which leads to the other half of the problem, which is they picked up this tool to solve this problem. They're going to say, here's how to use this tool. And what they actually mean is, I fucked around with this thing until it solved my problem. And here's exactly what I did to solve my problem. But problems come in classes. There are entire groups of problems that fit together into a classification of problem. And using a tool to solve that particular classification of problem requires that, A, you understand that class of problem. Most people don't. They only understand their one specific problem that they have. They don't understand the generic problem that they're looking at. The generic problem I'm looking at is a two-dimensional state machine. And when I say two-dimensional state machine, I mean it's making a decision based on two independent dimensions. Fundamentally independent dimensions. Like you could remove one of them and the rest of the state machine would stay the same. Specifically, there's a question of, number one, which direction are you moving? And number two, how fast are you going? Are you standing still, or walking, or running? That's one dimension, and that's just an enum that has three values, 0, 1, and 2. It's fairly quick. And then you have which direction are you moving, and which direction you're moving Well, you can handle that in a number of ways, but the way that I'm handling it is by looking at the movement vector, looking at the command vector. Because you don't want to look at which direction the player actually moves, because the player is being affected by other forces in addition to which direction the player is trying to move. But the direction your sprite faces is dependent on which direction the player is trying to move. That's the feedback to the player of, does the game recognize that I'm using my controller to try and move, or is it just ignoring me completely and not moving the direction that I want to move at all? Am I not moving the direction I want to move because something else is affecting me, or because the game does not recognize that I'm trying to move at all? So if you get hit by a projectile with knockback, your character should not turn around and face the direction the projectile is knocking them back. It's knock back. It doesn't force them to run in that direction. They should continue to face the same direction, regardless of which speed they're moving or what direction they're moving in. So the direction that your sprite is facing depends on player input, not on the actual direction of motion. That's a distinction that most people don't make. And I've watched a bunch of tutorials where they're like, okay, so whichever direction you're moving, we're going to face the sprite that way. And I just facepalm and go, well, right there, you've got a problem. And I left comments on a couple of these, and nobody cares. So people do not classify their problem as a series of things, okay? And they don't go, well, here are the major concerns. Here's why I'm making the decisions that I'm making. It's like there's a question: when exactly do you go from walking to running? Because the obvious split is you just go, are you going more than half of your total speed? But walking is a fairly small amount of your available movement speeds. If you think about when you're walking and when you're running, especially sprinting, is much more than twice your typical movement speed. Typical walking speed is 3 to 5 miles an hour. Typical running speed, that goes substantially higher. I mean, it can go as high as, you got people that run a 4-minute mile. A 4-minute mile, that's 15 miles an hour. So if you walk at 5 miles an hour, that's a third of your running speed. And if you walk at 3 miles an hour, that's a fifth of your running speed. But obviously, some people can't run a 4-minute mile, so you'd want to decrease it further and go, well, no, it's only 10 miles an hour. It's only 8 miles an hour. It's only 6 miles an hour. And then you sit there and go, well, motherfucker, some people walk at 5 miles an hour. Even if you split the difference and say it's 4 miles an hour, well, now you're at 2/3 of running speed. So where that split is, that's an open question. And the way that you solve that is that once you get that code in place, well, you fuck with it. You see what feels right. You change kind of where exactly do we want this to be. And what I intend to do with that is I'm going to take my little variable that controls where exactly the run cutoff is, and I'm going to export it, and I'm going to have a little slider. I'm going to take that slider and I'm going to move it, and I'm going to play around with the game, and I'm going to move that slider around and go, okay, that feels good. So it's going to end up some fucking weird constant like, 0.3149872 or some kind of shit. Not quite pi. I wasn't intending to go for pi, but I got close to pi over 10 with that. I'm not really sure why. Anyway. Where was I? I've been drinking. And it's bourbon drunk. So bourbon drunk is different than rum drunk. Rum drunk is a fun drunk. Bourbon drunk is just a different animal. I thought about going gin. Gin is also a different animal. Every kind of liquor that you can drink gives you a different kind of drunk. So when people say, I don't like hard liquor, they don't know what they're talking about. It's just like people who say, I don't like beer or I don't like wine, you know? Every kind of wine is different. Every kind of beer is different. All your different kinds of alcohol, they're going to give you a different kind of drunk. And people look at me like I'm crazy when I tell them that. And then I sit here and go, dude, when you go to your fucking dispensary, every variety has a different name, and people go, oh, this one's really different from that one. And you just go, yup, that's exactly how it is. Well, if weed isn't weed, why do you think alcohol is alcohol? It's not the same. It's all different. It all tastes different. It all gives you a different effect. Anyway, that's an irresponsible thing to be talking to people about. But that's what old men do, is talk about irresponsible shit. Anyway, that's one of the big problems that I run into, is people that have solved one problem with one tool, and they go, I'm going to teach you how to use this tool. This tool is for solving this problem. I don't think the animation tree is for solving this problem. I think we've perverted the animation tree because technically 2D animation with a sprite is animation. And the animation tree is just a finite state machine. And we build finite state machines to work with, man, this trim is up too high on this microphone. Let me turn it down a little bit. I got a compressor, so you won't notice too much. But let's turn that down a little bit. It was kind of a bad idea. The last video I did, I turned up the volume really high to create feedback in the microphone because I thought that would be cool. Typically, you would rehearse a thing like that and see how it works. Or even better, you would use like a fake feedback sound effect. You would record feedback before the stream, and then you'd play it back on the stream to fake like there's feedback, to say, look, feedback is bad. But I didn't do that because I don't script these things and I don't plan these things. And the most that I do is just kind of think about what subject I'm going to talk about when I get here. And I've been talking for like 12 minutes now. Almost 13. And that's about the length that I target for these, because that's about what people can fucking handle. Because who wants to listen to some jackass like me talk for 20 minutes about some random arbitrary bullshit? If that's you, then hit the subscribe button, because I do this twice a fucking week. Anyway, people aren't thinking about the classes of problems that they're solving, and they're not thinking about the range of problems that could be handled. And I think the animation tree is designed to blend three-dimensional animation data, but it can also easily blend two-dimensional animation data. So because it can easily blend two-dimensional animation data, we may as well use it for that. It's a good way to implement a finite state machine in a way that, see, I've got a basic two-dimensional state machine, and I've got four-dimensional movement, okay, or two-dimensional movement. I've got four-way movement, okay. I've got up, down, left, and right. Simple, basic. And then I've got, standing still, walking, and running. That's only 12 options. It's fairly simple to just do a switch statement and switch between those 12 options. And I can do that in the process function. It's not a big deal. The problem is that you start off with a two-dimensional finite state machine that has 12 different states. And then the next thing you know, you go, hey, I better have another dimension for the lighting state, so we can do particular lighting effects on the carrier. And I better have another one for like the environment, that they're in, so they'll move differently depending on whether they're moving across this terrain or that terrain. And then the next thing you know, you're going, we should have equipment in this game. If we got equipment in this game, then you should move differently depending on what armor you're wearing. And, we need to change out your animations depending on which weapon you've got equipped. And the next thing you know, you've got a 6-dimensional state machine with 412 different animation tracks. And now the state machine in your process routine is 3,000 lines long, and every time you add anything, it breaks because it's just too big, it's too complex. You haven't designed it properly. It was fine when it was little, but then when it gets big, what the fuck? Do I intend for this to get big? No, you never do. But then it does. And when it does, you go, man, at this point, I really need to have a class like the animation tree to manage my finite state machine that does the animation transitions. And learning how to use the animation tree when you have hundreds of animations in a half dozen different dimensions, that's going to be a lot more difficult. So I'm trying to learn the animation tree and use the animation tree when the problem is small. And the problem is small and easily handled. And I can't find a lot of help on it, and I can't find a lot of documentation on it. And the documentation that I've got doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And it also, there's a lot of deprecated functionality in here. It looks like the animation tree has been redesigned a couple of times. And I have the utmost faith in the team. I believe they have implemented the animation tree exactly the way they should implement it, and they've put the stuff into it that needs to be in it, and they've done it exactly the same way I would do it if I understood what the fucking thing was doing, which I don't. If I did, I'm sure I would go, oh, of course, this is exactly the way I would do it. And I think it's much heavier duty than what I need. And the thing that I need is just like a piece of it. And I don't know where exactly that piece is in the larger structure. So I need to find that piece in the larger structure and just focus on that so that I can learn the stuff that I need to learn. But it's also very important that I recognize, by focusing in on that little part of the animation tree and only learning that one little part, I still don't fucking know about the animation tree. I'm not an expert in how to use it. I might be able to show you how to use it for 2D animation, but there's a recognition that you're only using like a tiny bit of the functionality, and representing this as, I'm going to teach you how to use this object. That's just irresponsible. It's irresponsible and unethical. And I think there are a lot of people out there right now who are making tutorials, and they have no fucking business making tutorials because they don't know how to teach and they don't know how to program. I think there's a lot of people making tutorial content out here on the internet that have no experience, and because they have no experience, they don't know what good teaching looks like or what good information looks like. And I'm very frustrated by all of the people that are writing explicitly in GDScript, and they're using features of GDScript that are very, very handy for working with something like the animation tree, because you can grab variables in the animation tree and drag them into the script editor in Godot, and it just automatically populates your little GDScript index. Well, I can't do that in C#. And that's fine with me because I don't want to be dragging and dropping shit. You can drag something and drop it and have no fucking clue what's going on behind the scenes. You just know, grab this thing and drag it there. I want my understanding of the animation tree and the animation player and all of the stuff I use in Godot. I want my understanding of it to be deeper than that, So it's not drag this there, but, whatever dragging that there does, implement that in code. You could just drag it over here if you were using GDScript, but I'm not. So because I'm not, I'm going to do it differently. And I can do it differently because I understand what it is I'm doing. I know how to address it. I know how to access the information that I'm trying to access. And it's very frustrating because all of these people seem very, very wrapped up in solving their own problem and not in understanding why doing this thing solves the problem. This is why you can't get a fucking job. It's because you don't understand the concept behind the tool. You don't understand what the tool is doing. You don't understand the difference between when you use a hammer and when you use a screwdriver. And you're just going, well, if I have this thing, I use a screwdriver, and if I have this thing, I use a nail. Well, yeah, but what properties of the material mean you should use a nail? Like, why do we use nails to frame a house and screws for building a deck? Why do we use nails for building a house and screws for building a deck? Have you ever seen those screws that have they got the thread going one way all the way along the length, and then all the way at the top they got a little gap, and then they got threads that go the other way? Why would you use that? Well, that's for your polymer decking. I redid my deck a couple of years ago, and when you're using polymer decking, the thing is that when you use polymer decking, you're not actually compressing the fibers the same way because there are no fibers. It's a homogeneous material. It's fucking plastic. It's plastic. So you drive the screw into it and it cuts into the material most of the way. And then once you get down to the end of that, okay, that reverse thread backs up the compression slightly. So it kind of bores out a little hole for you to get a semi-countersink in there. I don't know. You'd have to ask a fucking carpenter. I'm not a carpenter. I'm not a builder. I mean, I've worked carpentry, I've worked building, I've worked construction, but I have only the most basic understanding of what it is. But yeah, the reason you use those dual direction threads on a screw is because you're using polymer decking. And if you're not using polymer decking, you're going to have a bad time. Because if you're not using polymer decking and you go to pull that screw out, it's going to attach your deck board more tightly to the screw as you go. And you'll never be able to get it out. You'll never be able to get the screw out of there because when you run it in reverse, it's tightening itself down harder. It's pulling itself out of the underlying joist, but it's not pulling the screw out of the top piece of polymer decking, which is fine if you're never going to pull it apart, which is typically the case with polymer decking. Why would you pull it apart? But, well, there is a reason you would pull it apart, and that reason is if you forgot to tape your joists. You need to tape your joists if you're using polymer decking because it's not porous, and because it's not porous, you have to force a little bit of a gap at the bottom there that's porous and can let moisture get through there. Otherwise, you're going to have problems with rot. And I've had way too fucking much. So let's have some more. Fuck it. Yeah, this is how old men think. I've had too much. Let's have some more. I'm using the old school brown sugar bourbon in this, and it is really, really good. You know what I did earlier this week is is I took a bottle of Coke and instead of putting rum in it, I used banana schnapps. That was pretty fucking good. Schnapps is underrated. I think too many people think of it as a girly drink. And you know what? Fuck you. You deserve a drink that tastes good. You don't have to drink straight whiskey and tequila shots all the time. Have yourself a drink that tastes good. Anyway, there was something else I wanted to mention. I know what it was. I know exactly what it was. It was, I had this realization that I started to post a big long thread on Blue Sky about, and then I didn't finish posting the thread. I started posting it. I posted like half of what I was thinking in the thread. But then I thought, hey, whatever happened to that sequel to Adventure Capitalist, Adventure Communist? Is that still out there? I think I played that a little. I wonder if it still has my progress saved. And no, it did not still have my progress saved. But it is still out there, and I downloaded it, and that was a bad idea. If you're trying to get something done and you download an idle clicker game, you're going to have a bad time. Because you're not going to get your shit done. I got holes to repair in the fence. We had a windstorm like a couple of months ago, and it fucked up our split rail fence out in front of the house and like snapped 3 of the supporting posts. And now we got to figure out what we're going to do about that. And there's nothing else for it. You got to pull the concrete pilings and drive new posts and pour new concrete. So that's going to be fun. Right now it's too fucking wet. You can't do that. Because if you tried to do that, the concrete wouldn't dry for a month and a half. You may as well put it off until it's a little bit drier. But then this is Western Washington. It never gets fucking dry. Anyway, I am once again distracted from the realization that I had. Something I've been complaining about for a long time is you'll put a feature in a game and you'll go, hey, here's a thing you can go do. Here's a weapon right at the beginning of the game that just makes the whole game really fucking simple, really trivial. And the only thing you have to do, if you don't like that, don't fucking buy it. It's really expensive anyway. It's right at the beginning. It's really expensive. If you can't afford it, don't fucking buy it. Then you don't have it. It's that simple. And then the game's, still the same challenge that it was. But because it's there, and because it has a price tag on it, people will go, oh, if I kill these pigs that are wandering around in the front room, I'll get like 4 gold. And this thing's 1,600 gold. Nobody has 1,600 gold at the beginning of the game, but if I walk out of the first room and then back into it, then the 4 pigs show back up. And I can kill the 4 pigs, and I can make another 4 gold. So if I just do that 400 times, then I can buy this weapon that I shouldn't be able to buy at this point in the game. And once I've got this weapon that I shouldn't be able to buy, the rest of the game's fucking trivial because now I have this like world-ending weapon that I can just stomp around with. And people get mad about that. They get mad about it because they go, oh, it's possible for me to grind and get that weapon. Okay. It's possible for me to come all the way back here later in the game when I have 1,600 gold and buy the weapon. Okay. And then I have the weapon and the game's not fun anymore. So don't do that. You don't like that. Don't fucking do it. But I have to. You don't fucking have to. You don't. No, you don't have to. Well, I have no choice. What do you mean you have no choice? You can do it or you could not. It's fucking simple. What are you talking about? You have no choice. It's what my character would do. Here we have identified a conflict of interest between you, the player, and you, the character within the game. And that conflict of interest is your character in the game doesn't want to be challenged, doesn't like to be challenged. They want everything to be easy. Because why wouldn't they? Obviously. But you, the player, making the decision, you do want to be challenged. You do like to be challenged. And you should make the decision that you, the player, want. Because you are the boss. You get to choose what this is. Your character is not the boss of you. Don't let them control you. And the insight that I had over the course of the last week was a lot of people want to be externally constrained. They want the experience of not being the boss. I don't fucking understand this. I started my company in 1986. I have been my own boss, at least part-time, since I was 16 years old. I was a latchkey kid. I made my own decisions and made my own choices starting when I was like 9. And I look back on that now, 40 years later, I look back on that and go, yep, that's the right decision for me. That's me. That's who I am. That's what I want to do. I don't want to work for a boss. I want to be the fucking boss. I don't even like clients. Clients fucking suck and I hate them. That's why I don't do commissions as an artist. Every once in a while, I go through social media and I see some dipshit posting their fucked up art and saying, I'm opening 4 commission slots at $60 each. You're selling this shit? This fucking garbage you draw? And then like 2 hours after they post, I've opened 4 commission slots. They're like, all commission slots are full. You just sold $240 worth of crap in a couple hours. I mean, you're not making $60 an hour because it's going to take you a week to do these commissions. But you got a $240 a week side hustle? That's $6 an hour. That's half a minimum wage job. It's not fucking bad. And you suck. Like, your work is crap. It's absolute garbage. That's why I'm not naming anybody who does this. Because it's just, I look at this stuff and I'm like, my art's better than that. But I fucking hate clients. And I don't have a lot of followers on social media. I'm cranky. I'm cantankerous. I block people at the drop of a fucking hat. Go ahead, say some transphobic shit on my timeline. You're fucking gone. But the whole reason that I don't take commissions is because I fucking hate working for people. I hate working for anybody. I don't know how that's going to fly as a game developer. When I go into the discussions and people are like, we want this feature. And I'm like, no. What do you mean no? Because you're stupid and you don't know what you're talking about. That is not the artistic vision. I paid X amount of dollars for your game. Yeah, fuck you. That's half an hour of my time, okay? Good fucking luck with that. I get to tell you what to do. Yeah, okay, sure, for half an hour. What do you want me to do for half an hour? Ooh, that'll take 4 hours. Sorry, you don't get shit. I'm responsive to problems as a general rule. I believe very strongly that if your community thinks something is wrong with your game, they're almost certainly right. And if they think they know how to fix it, they're almost certainly wrong. So we're going to see how that flies. I don't know how well that flies. The important thing is just to get something finished and get it out there. But yeah, lots of people don't want to be the boss. They want somebody else to be the boss. And I think the reason they want somebody else to be the boss is because they don't want responsibility for their failures. I have failed a lot. I have, on 3 occasions in my life, been a multimillionaire on paper. I am not a multimillionaire on paper anymore. I've never been a multimillionaire in practice anyway, because revenue and profit are 2 very different things, and profit and income are 2 very different things, which a lot of people are realizing now that it's fucking tax season. But, yeah. I've fucked up a lot. I've lost a lot in my life. And the reason that I've lost is almost entirely because I was stupid and made bad decisions. And they were typically bad decisions because I trusted somebody else, which I should have known better. I've spent a lot of time in my life trusting people that I shouldn't trust, and relying on people that I shouldn't rely on, and leaning on people that I shouldn't have leaned on. And I've learned a bit from that, which is why I'm doing every fucking thing myself. But that also kind of hamstrings you. It's important to lean on people. It's important to rely on people. It's important to trust people. And you can't let, well, every person I've ever trusted and relied on and leaned on has just fucking screwed me. You can't let that affect anything. Because the fact is, most people you can trust and you can rely on and you can lean on as long as the money stays below a certain level. Once you get a certain amount of money involved, people can't be trusted or relied on or leaned on. Sort of the problems Elmo is fucking running into. Fuck it, another. There we go. You know, the fun part is this could just be a Coke you'd never fucking know. Unless, of course, you're sufficiently schooled to know that if you poured a Coke, it would not calm down that fast. So clearly there's a substantial amount of alcohol in this carbonated beverage because the specific gravity is too high to hold all that carbonation. That's an excellent example of some complete fucking bullshit. Because it's absolutely trivial to just stir up the Coke and get some of the carbonation out of it. If you shake the Coke before you open it and then you let it calm down and you let all the carbonation get out, then it looks like you got a flat Coke. You do have a flat Coke, but you could say it's flat because you put alcohol in it if you didn't put alcohol in it. Did I put alcohol in this? Fuck yeah. But you don't know that. You'll never know. You will never actually know the answer to that. You just got to take my word for it. And you can trust me on that because there's not enough money involved for me to bullshit you on it. I don't know. You can tell I've been drinking because what the fuck does all this mean? Anyway. And everybody has their lose their fucking mind amount of money. And it depends on how much they care about money. You know, it's just there's an amount of money where once you have this amount of money involved in a decision, then their brains slide out of their arsehole and they can't make reasonable decisions anymore. They're fucking nuts. They make decisions based entirely on the money and who gets the money. I had a partner. We were really good friends, and we stayed really good friends until we got to about, there were two things that happened. One thing that happened was there was an antitrust situation with Microsoft. Now, my friend and business partner was already a multimillionaire in his 20s because his uncle had been giving him every year for his birthday some Microsoft stock. So he had all of this Microsoft stock, and at this point, with all of the stock appreciation and the splitting and the doubling and all of that kind of shit, and all of the stock market stuff, he had upwards of $4.5 million in stock. And there was an antitrust action against Microsoft, and he started going, oh man, Microsoft is going to be fucked. It's going to be so fucking ruined. It's going to be absolutely trashed. And I was like, dude, relax. You're going to be fine. Okay? And he was worried about what was going to happen to his $4.5 million. And I told him, the thing you need to understand is that $4.5 million is fake until it's in your hands. Okay? How much actual cash did you spend to get it? None. So it's nothing until it's actually in your hands. Until you sell it and you have the money and it's in your hands, you don't actually have anything. If you lose it all, you've lost nothing because you spent nothing. You invested nothing. You risked nothing. So relax. I would just let it ride. Well, his buddy Mike decided that he was gonna take a contrarian position on that, and my partner decided, well, I'm going to sell all of my Microsoft stock and I'm going to buy these other stocks that are going to take over when Microsoft goes bankrupt. And he bet on Microsoft falling over and dying. I used to work at Microsoft. So you can kind of tell where my sympathies lie. I still talk about us. I still talk about we and us when I talk about decisions Microsoft made. I never actually worked for Microsoft. I wasn't a full-time employee at Microsoft. I was a contractor, but it's the first job I ever had where I loved my boss and I loved my company and I loved my coworkers, and I felt like for the first time ever, it was such a change. It felt like nobody gave a single shit about money. Nobody fucking cared. Every decision was being made on the question of what is the technically correct thing to do? What is the morally right thing to do? What is the ethically preferable thing to do? That's changed post Steve Ballmer. I worked under Bill Gates. I worked under Steve Ballmer. I loved both of them to pieces. And then I left. And now the people in charge are fundamentally unrecognizable to me. I did go back. I went back and I interviewed at Microsoft for a full-time position a couple of years after I left. And it didn't feel like the same place. there was a change in the way people acted. There was a change in the way people behaved. And when they told me that I was not going to be offered the position, I was relieved, because I didn't want to work at the new Microsoft that I had just interviewed at. I didn't want to work for these people. I didn't want to work with these people. I didn't love them the way I loved the old Microsoft. I liked them. They were okay. There's a difference between feeling like the people around you are competent and feeling like the people around you are good people. I don't know how meaningful that is. I don't know who's still watching this. It's 45 minutes in. Who the fuck cares? Why are you still watching this? What's wrong with you? Do the little YouTube dance, like, comment, subscribe, all that happy horse shit. Anyway. Once he dumped all of that stock and he bought all of this other stock, that's just like when Microsoft goes under, all of these guys are going to clean up. Well, Microsoft didn't go under, and none of those guys cleaned up. In fact, most of those guys went bankrupt. So he went from $4.5 million down to like 150,000 in no time at all. And then he scrambled around all over the place trying to go, how do I multiply my 150,000 by another 30? You don't make a 3,000% profit in 6 months by shuffling your shit around and trying to be a day trader. You don't know what you're fucking doing. I got a friend in New York that can help you with day trading if day trading is a thing that you want to do. But if you're gonna like do it all on your own, oh no, I know what I'm doing. Pride goeth before a fall. So he went from being a multimillionaire on paper to having jack fucking shit. And once he went down to having jack fucking shit, well, then I was the one with the money. And when I was the one with the money, the squabbles started to happen. I mean, it was not a big deal when the company was like $500,000 and he had $4.5 million. It's just like order of magnitude difference. He didn't care. But when the company started getting closer and closer to $1 million in revenue, he started stamping his feet and demanding more benefits and more concessions. And he's my partner. You know, we were equals in this, and he went and did his thing, and I went and did my thing, and my thing was making money, and his thing wasn't making money. And our partnership agreement said, you know, it's like the software contracts are all me and the hardware contracts are all him. And he couldn't get the hardware contracts. And he said, it's because I don't have a good mailing list. I'm like, I'll get you a good mailing list. He's like, I need a good phone list. I'll get you a good phone list. And I got him a good mailing list and I got him a good phone list. And he said, well, you know, it's a problem that I have to do this on my own residential phone and not on a business phone. And I jumped through so many fucking hoops to get a private branch exchange, to get a PBX system that included his house and had a sequential phone number with the business and had rollover so that when a call came in to any of our 10 support numbers, it went to him. And then he needed broadband internet, and we got him an expensive digital subscriber line, because it's all that was available in his area. And, you know, we couldn't justify a T1 drop. Not even a frame relay. We couldn't even do a fractional. But yeah, we installed all of this stuff, and then he just stopped talking to anybody. And after like 4 or 5 months, I went over to his house and I knocked on the door, and he didn't live there anymore. But his 3 former roommates were still using the phone that we installed. And they were still using the internet that we were paying for. And I was like, yeah, you guys are losing those things, you know. Yeah, if he's not here, then his benefits are no longer going to be in your apartment for you to fucking use. And come to find out that what he did was he moved to San Diego to take a sales job with some OEM or other. And I was like, why did you do that? You suck at sales. It's like, why did you take a sales job getting a commission on sales that somebody else was doing when you could be doing the same sales job here and keeping all of the money from doing the work? You would have 100% commissions. What the fuck? I don't know what the fuck. I don't know what was wrong there, but it was the income asymmetry that caused the problem. Used to run into problems with the people I had working in the company, because they go, "Oh, I only get paid this much money," and I'd be like, "You know how much I get paid? I don't get paid what you get paid. I get what's left after the bills are covered. You guys get what you contracted for. I get what's left over. And what's left over is not what you contracted for. It's like half that. You guys are all making more money than me." But yeah, that's one of the things, is when the money starts to get to a certain level. There's a level for everybody, okay? That's one of the reasons that if you're going to be dealing with millions of dollars, it's really preferable that you find somebody who grew up with millions of dollars, because they're not going to lose their fucking mind when they see millions of dollars on the bottom line. They're not going to go, "How come there's millions of dollars and I don't get millions of dollars?" Because we spend it on other shit. We got an office. We got a receptionist. We got insurance. We got suppliers. We got contractors. We got employees. We got all of this shit that needs to be paid for. "Well, I just don't think it's fair that we make $1.5 million a year, and I'm only getting like 40,000. You don't do anything. "Well, you're making a 6-figure salary." I'm working in the company. I'm working in the company. I get the same 40,000 you get, plus I get the hourly for actually going out and doing client work on client sites. That's why I get more than you, because I go out and do work. Do you know why you don't go out and do work? Because you don't make fucking phone calls, and you don't make fucking sales, and you don't get fucking contracts, and you don't have any clients for you to service. Everybody we got is software. We don't have any hardware. Why don't we have hardware? Because you don't fucking sell hardware, and you're the hardware guy. You sell the hardware contracts. I sell the software contracts. He was pissed about that constantly, because he's a much better salesman than I am. He really is. Always has been. Understands the theory of sales, understands the theory of marketing, could tell you all day long, you know, here's what you're doing wrong in your sales and marketing. Told me all the time. He first came into the company. When he first came in as a partner, it's like, I brought him in as a partner because, you know, I said, I'm trying to do this software business and I can't seem to get any clients. I can't seem to sell anything. And he's like, "Well, how are you doing it?" And you pretend I'm a client. Talk to me like I'm a client. And I gave him my pitch. He's like, "That pitch fucking sucks." And he told me what to do with the pitch, and he told me what to do with my marketing materials. He said, "Do this, do that, do the other." He gave me like a half a dozen tips, and I implemented those tips, and bam, I got contracts. I got a contract, and I needed to hire 3 contractors to go and do the fucking work. And I was like, fucking hell, dude. You want to go in on this with me? You want to be part of it? Do you want to be part of this thing? Because you're good. You know shit I don't know. You're an expert in things that I barely understand. And so partnerships are supposed to be for. When you get somebody that's really good at what they do, but it's not enough, and you're good at what you do, but it's not enough, you put those two things together, the two of you being good at what you do, that can be enough. In retrospect, I was not very helpful to him, because software guy. He brought skills into the company that cross-pollinated, and I acquired enough of those skills that I didn't need him to benefit from them. And then instead of cutting him out of the company, I left him in the company, where he became a liability. That's awful. That implies that literally the correct thing, the objectively correct thing to do from a what's best for the company standpoint, the objectively correct decision was, once he wasn't contributing to the company anymore, he should have been cut loose and let go and given nothing. I don't like that. I don't like that. And that's an excellent example of the objectively correct thing to do from an economic standpoint. I had somebody complain about it earlier this week. Somebody was saying, I go to my economics class and everything they tell me is this horribly immoral, unethical, awful shit. Yeah, economics is amoral. It doesn't care one way or the other. It has no morality. It has no ethics. It has no concept of right or wrong. It's all just about how you make decisions. This is the best decision if all you care about is money. Your morals and ethics are what differentiate you. And your morals and ethics are inefficient. It's always more efficient to have no morals and no ethics and never even try to do the right thing. But efficiency is bad for things you care about, like customer loyalty, like doing the right thing, whatever you might think that is, you know? You can't leave your morality at the door when you start a company, even though it may be the objectively correct decision for the bottom line of the company to fire people like they did with the Marvel Rivals team, to just dump teams and go, I don't have anything to do with these people. I don't have anything for these people to do. I may as well throw them away. Why would I want to share the millions of dollars that we're making on this project with the people who helped build it? You're not paying for the past, paying for the future. You don't pay somebody because you don't pay somebody because they did something for you. They already did it. You don't need to pay them for that. You're paying them because of what they're going to do for you in the future. And what they did in the past just demonstrates, here's what they could do for you in the future. When you have a team that builds something amazing like Marvel Rivals, you look at their contribution and you go, I need to keep paying these people because they could do this again. And that's what you want to get them on as quickly as possible. The team that worked on Marvel Rivals, once they finished their work, they should have immediately been turned to a new project. That should have been like the main focus. They should have been on overhead for maybe 2 or 3 months. Well, we went, okay, what are they going to do next? Where are they going to work next? They should have been preferentially moved to other projects within the company, where they can work on another multi-million-dollar property, where they can work on something else that's going to make a boatload of money. If you just throw them away, well, if you care about nothing else, they could go work for a competitor. If you don't particularly care about your competition, then they're going to go get some boring bullshit job, and they're not going to be available when you need to hire somebody who has the expertise they have. And because you fired them, they're not going to want to work for you again. Nobody really thinks about the future anymore. That's the problem. They're not thinking about what they're going to do next. They're thinking about what they're going to do now. Nobody saves any money. Nobody wants to let anybody else save any money. Nobody cares what the fallout from their bullshit is going to be. This may or may not be relevant to what's going on in United States politics right now, but I don't want to talk about it. I'm not oblivious. I'm not ignorant of it. I see what's going on. I see what's happening. And it's the same thing that I've seen over and over again. Private equity has come to town, and they don't care what this business, it's a government, it's not a business. Government doesn't make a profit, you fucking moron. They don't care what the business is going to do in the future. They care what they can extract from it right now. This is what your introductory economics classes teach you. This is what you learn in game theory and microeconomics. How you extract the maximum possible profit. Macroeconomics is where you first start to learn maximum possible profit. Here is not the same as maximum possible profit there. And sometimes, operating in the place of the maximum possible profit has costs that make it less preferable than working where you make a lower profit. But it's not until the very end. It's not, I think it's not even until grad school that you get into behavioral economics. And it's behavioral economics that are really the important part. That's really the major thing that you need to be concerned with, because it's behavioral economics that tell you it's not just about the numbers. It's more than that. It's more important than that. And that's why none of the stuff that you learned in game theory and micro and macro, it's why none of that works in the real world, because of behavioral. But you get all these people that don't get to behavioral economics and they go, oh, it's just manipulation. They learn the dark patterns of psychology, and they learn marketing, and they learn sales, and they get their MBA instead of studying a real discipline. And as a result of that, they have this skewed version of the world. There's this thing that I call undergraduate disease. And undergraduate disease is where you have read just enough Marx to give you the idea that the world owes you a living. And you have read just enough Ayn Rand to believe that you have every right to extract that living from the world and keep it. And you've read just enough Nietzsche to know that it doesn't matter if these two things are contradictory, because nothing means anything anymore. God is dead. And then there's postmodernism that ties all of that up in a bow, and it wraps all of that up in a neat little package and says it doesn't have to make sense, as long as it's different from the things that came before. As long as I'm not doing the same old thing that the old people are doing. Well, having to make sense all the time? Oh, that's archaic thinking. That's conservatism there. And all of these things come from being a freshman in university. And you spend your time as a frosh learning this shit, and you have learned just enough of it to fuck up your life. If you're at all intelligent, then when you get to your sophomore year, you're going to unlearn all of this shit. You're going to learn that, wait a minute, it's not pointless. It's not meaningless. The world doesn't owe you a living. The labor theory of value is horse shit. And on top of that, Ayn Rand's entire fundamental thesis is, you know, if you do what's good for you, that's good for society. So be an enormous cock to everybody. No, that's got a negative NPV right there. That's not something that you want to do. And Nietzsche has been largely misinterpreted, because Nietzsche was a decent human being. He didn't believe nothing mattered. He didn't believe nothing was important. He wasn't a Nazi supporter. Much of what you think Nietzsche is about is a misconception brought about posthumously by his sister and her husband, who were misrepresenting him as, this justifies Nazi ideology. And postmodernism isn't even a thing. It's the post part should clarify to you that it's not a movement that's about anything. It's about not being something. It's a rejection of modernism. And modernism is the idea that new ideas are better than old ideas, as opposed to classicism, which is the idea that old ideas are better than new ideas. And postmodernism is the idea that no ideas matter. All of the ideas are stupid and suck and fuck them. That's not a real philosophy. That doesn't work. And the problem is that when you're 20 years old and you're in university, you don't know what works. You're not going to know what works until you're somewhere between the ages of 24 and 28. When you're about 26 years old, you'll probably get your head around the concept of what is good and what is not good. I got a friend that's about to hit that point. His wife shot a hole in the bathroom wall and got them evicted. I'm not going to go into too much detail about that because it's not my story to tell, but God, it was funny. He blames himself for it. He says, oh, it's my fault for not teaching her enough firearm safety. I mean, that's a take. That's a take, but I don't know the details either. It's just like somebody didn't practice proper firearm safety. I'm not exactly sure who it was. I'm not exactly sure how they didn't practice good firearm safety. But if I were a betting man, I'd say it was his wife. I'd say his wife didn't know the firearm safety. That's a tough one, though. That's a tough one, though. If someone doesn't know firearm safety and there's a gun sitting around, should you expect them to either practice proper firearm safety even though they don't know it? Or should you expect them to just don't touch the fucking gun? And as you're asking that question, I would then like you to turn around and go, why is the gun sitting around? Whose firearm safety was the gun sitting around? Who was that? I don't know. I don't know the whole story. I don't know all the details. It's funny in one sense. It's not funny in another sense. Somebody could have been hurt. Nobody was, but somebody could have been. And they got evicted, which isn't funny. It's going to cost them a bunch of money. It's going to be a bunch of trouble. It's going to be a bunch of stress. They had to get a storage unit to put shit in. I'm not sure their families know they're married. They kind of ran off and eloped. So I don't know if they told anybody. That's why I'm not saying who it is. God. Anyway, oh God, we're over an hour. Did I cover the thing that I was covering? Let me back up. Let me try and remember. I hit pause, and I went up, and I made another bourbon and Coke. I would recommend the brown sugar bourbon that I used in this bourbon and Coke, but they don't make it anymore because some fucking rapper dickhead bought the company, and when he bought the company, he went, "What do you mean that's all the money you're making? You should be making more money than this selling bourbon. This bourbon's really good. Let's change the recipe." And now the recipe's fucking garbage. So I tracked down an old supplier of it and bought a case. For a long time, I had the last 12 bottles of the original brown sugar bourbon in Washington State. Now I have the last 2 bottles. And one of them's almost empty. So we're a fairly short distance from the last bottle of the original brown sugar bourbon in Washington State. I got a friend in Oregon who did the same thing. He had to get his case. I got my case from a local supplier. He had to get his case shipped in from like the middle of buttfuck nowhere. He got it from like Alabama or Arkansas or some such shit. Sometimes I am struck by how much time, energy, effort, and money I put into alcohol. I got an empty bottle of absinthe over here that I save because that's the bottle of absinthe I want to buy next time I buy absinthe, and I want to make sure I remember what bottle it is. And it was $180 when I bought it 10 years ago, so it's probably $300 now. I may be a drunk, but I'm a refined drunk. I'm a man of good breeding and excellent taste. I'm not an alcoholic. I'm a drunk. Alcoholics go to meetings. Anyway, did I cover the thing that I was trying to cover? I was talking about fucking Elmo. His bullshit in the government. I don't want to talk too much about that. I try to avoid that, but you know, there's like certain things I do want to get out of the way. Like, number one, I'm Jewish, so fuck Nazis. Elmo's a fucking Nazi, so fuck Elmo. And if you like Elmo, fuck you. That's all I have to say about that. It's pretty fucking basic. If you think Elmo's bullshit in the government is a good idea, you're a fucking Nazi. Fuck off. People who don't want to be the boss, they don't want the responsibility of their stuff. There are people, I used to think this was the only kind of people that this applied to. There are people who do not want the option to buy the cool shit at the beginning of the game because they don't want other people to do it. Because they want their achievement in getting through the game to be inaccessible to other people who don't have the skills they used. They want one and only one path through the game, and if you don't follow that path and learn all of their shit, if you don't get good, then you can't do the thing that they're doing. And these people they're basically just being competitive, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with being competitive, but that's not the best strategy for a product. A product should be useful in a broad range of circumstances. Just like the animation tree. The animation tree should be useful in a broad range of circumstances. You got people who go, here's how to use the animation tree for 2D animation. Well, that's one way to use it, but it's useful in a broad array of circumstances. You haven't covered anything except your specific issue. Nah. Coffee. That's enough bourbon. When you only cover your specific issue, when you only cover your path from point A to point B, and you act like that's the only point A you could come from and the only point B you could go to, that's not reality. That's not what other people are experiencing. And when you act like you're teaching people something, you're not teaching anybody anything unless they're just like you. Which is kind of in-grouping and out-grouping. Wow, that's a can of worms. In-grouping and out-grouping is... that's frequently an issue with how people interact. God, I'm getting way too deep into this. We're at almost an hour and 20 minutes. I need to try and restrict this so that we can at the very least come in at less than 90 minutes. But, yeah. Whether you're making tutorials or playing through a game, the idea that your path is the only path is ignorant bullshit, and you shouldn't present things that way. I wouldn't presume to teach people how to use the animation tree if I didn't understand a fairly broad range of what could be done with it. Man, there's a lot of belching in this part of the video. And given the amount of bourbon I've been putting in these Cokes, there'll probably be some throwing up before morning. Shit happens. Boot and rally, bitch! But, look, if you want to teach people stuff, you should know the broad applications of what you're using. You should know the broad applications of what you're doing. You should know the generic function of the things that you're putting together. And the animation tree in Gato is complex. It's complex and detailed and flexible and versatile. And I love that. That's great. That's fantastic from an architectural viewpoint. From a user standpoint, God, it fucking sucks. It's so much fucking work. I don't even know what the fuck I'm looking at. But, yeah. I keep jumping back and forth between subjects because my brain isn't working right, because I've been drinking. You know that. You've been watching me do it. There are people who don't want to be responsible for their own decisions and actions. And that's a slightly different class of people from the people who want everybody to make the same decisions and actions. That's a prescriptive-descriptive difference, for one. It's prescriptive for people to say, you have to play the game the way I play the game. I ran into this with Skyrim, where people are just like, you have to play it in survival mode. Okay, I'll play it in survival mode. Okay, and now you're playing in survival mode, and it's going to be a lot harder. It's really not, because I just use like carriages to get back and forth between the major cities, so not really a big deal. It's cheating. It's cheating to use carriages. What do you mean it's cheating to use carriages? You're not supposed to use carriages. You're supposed to walk everywhere. Well, yeah, but like when you're going from Windhelm to Winterhold, it is really fucking dangerous to just like walk. And they're like, oh, that's no problem. All you have to do is buy 1 unit of fire salts at the alchemist, and then you use the companion glitch to duplicate dozens of them and make a bunch of hot soups. So as you go through the wilderness, you could just eat hot soups. I'm sorry, carriages are cheating, but item duplication isn't? The fuck is wrong with you people? And that's when I stopped listening to what anybody told me about how to play Skyrim. I just play it however the fuck I want. Which is exclusively vanilla. I have 0 mods in it. And the reason I have 0 mods is, at one point I went, you know, I could probably use a couple of mods. I will add this little camp that sits outside of Windhelm because it will be convenient. I will add this one little mod that has this convenient location outside of Windhelm. And I added this one mod. And I went to Riften. And there was a guard sitting on empty air and gradually floating up into the sky. I don't have these problems normally. So I uninstalled the mod, and I didn't see that anymore. Well, I still saw the guard sitting on empty air, but he didn't float up into the sky. I don't know why the guard sits on empty. He faces the wrong direction. He goes up to the bench, and then he faces the wrong direction and sits on the empty air across from the bench. Dude, turn around. What the fuck is your problem? But yeah, that's a thing. It bothers me when people tell me that I'm supposed to play a game a certain way. I should be able to play the game however the fuck I want. That's the way I feel about it. And you should let everybody else play the game however the fuck they want. I don't use mods in Skyrim. You can use all the fucking mods you want in Skyrim. I don't give a shit. Starfield, I don't use any mods that don't come out of the Creation Club. You can use whatever fucking mods you want. Even the mods I use out of the Creation Club. I only use mods that are marked achievement safe because I'm paranoid about they're going to release an update and it's going to have more achievements in it. And my good save won't be able to get the achievements. That bothers me. That worries me. Yeah, the throwing up is not that far in the future. You can tell I drink a lot because I know. Anyway, we are closing up on an hour and a half. I don't know how well I've communicated both insights that I had this week. I think I communicated the one about people do tutorials that are just like, I used this tool to solve this problem in this way. And that's not really a good tutorial on the tool that they used or the problem that they solved. And I don't think it even necessarily deserves to be called a tutorial. And also people frequently want not to be responsible or accountable for their own decisions. They want to make decisions because they've been forced into them so that when the decisions are bad, they can say, it's not my fault, it's their fault. No, it's your fault because you're stupid. You're stupid and you make bad decisions. That's a thing. We're all weak. We're all stupid. We're born weak and stupid. We're born unable to do anything, and we don't know anything. And we don't own anything. I think I've mentioned that before. Everything that we can do is taught to us by somebody else. We learn what we can do by seeing other people do it and by practicing it ourselves. We become strong, we become smart, and we acquire stuff through other people. Nothing happens in a vacuum. And if you can't do something, you need somebody to teach you. If you don't know something, you need somebody to tell you. If you don't have something, you need somebody to give it to you. It's all about convincing people of those things. That's the core skill that every human being needs. It's the foundation of capitalism. Lots of people don't like capitalism. Well, I don't want to talk about that. Again, do the little YouTube dance, like, comment, subscribe, all that happy horse shit. We are a few seconds short of an hour and a half, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this short because I'm getting some little jets of saliva in my mouth that basically mean I need to go throw up. I've had too much. I've had a little bit too much. All of the people start to rush. How does he twist the dance? Can't find my drink, oh man. Where are my keys? I lost my phone. Okay, bye.